Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Francois started a company called Netbreeze, which is in the social CRM space, so social analytics space, that he successfully sold on to Microsoft. He currently works at Microsoft, working in the Microsoft Dynamics CRM division, focused on bringing more features into Netbreeze. So welcome, Francois.
All right, thank you.
So, Francois, I'll start off with the first question. We always try and get into where you started from, whether you had any entrepreneurial parents. What was the early years of your life like?
All right. Actually, my grandfather had his own business, but then there was the Second World War in Germany. And my father always was dreaming to have his own business, but he never actually did it. So I think that was one of the reasons why I'm like, don't think too much, just do it, because my father was quite the opposite from it, right? Always dreaming about it. And I'm like, more I don't want to dream about it, kill the dreams, do the stuff that you want to do. And so actually after my studies, I studied theoretical physics. Then I wanted to do a PhD, but it took too long, 2 months, that they could figure out whether I can do it or not. They need financing and all that stuff. And then just, I decided, well, okay, let's with another friend, another physics guy, we just said, let's go and make a business, make our own business. And so that's how we started, had no clue about business at all, just, it's like, we had a bunch of ideas what would be cool, and so we started.
So from theoretical physics to a startup in the social CRM space, how did you connect the dots? How did you think of Netbreeze as an idea?
Well, actually, the vision was kind of always there, because I was always doing stuff in the artificial intelligence space. So I'm really a data guy with algorithms and all that stuff. So that was always a fascination for me. I was, doing programming since I'm 8 years old, and doing games and all that stuff. And so it was just very easy to say, okay, why not taking these algorithms from artificial intelligence and apply it to this new growing unstructured database called internet, and see whether we can make any sense of the data out there. So that was kind of the starting point. But then we had, most of the projects, they failed completely in the beginning. We started off with a system. It's almost like Yahoo Pipe, an agent-based system to connect the stuff. I don't know if you know Yahoo Pipes. Does anybody know Yahoo Pipes? No? Maybe you know that anymore. But still, when we have done it, it was too early, Nobody understood what we're trying to accomplish. And and also this was the time of the whole crazy new economy hype. So it was easy to grab some money from some companies that just want to do something with it. But then after 2001, the whole thing crashed, and the internet was like, you cannot say it loud out there. It was like this, right? You could never sell projects where the internet word is just in the name of the project. And then we switched the approach completely, right? Not selling technology, but just going into companies and try to see, what their problems are, and then see whether can we help them with the data that we expect that we can grab, and with the algorithms, all that stuff. And then it really started, right?
Okay. So how did you know that this was the right idea to follow through in terms of building Netbreeze as a business?
I didn't know it. Well, I really didn't know it, right? We're just following the path. We're making money, good projects, right? It was not a product approach. We built it out a platform, and upon this platform, we have done very customized projects with bigger companies. Mainly, we started off in the job industry to gather job descriptions, from the internet, and also we've done a lot of business with the reinsurance industry, because they have like a very hard challenge. They insurance almost the whole world, and how to get an overview, and so the internet was kind of maybe a good database to collect some data to answer some hard, tough questions. So, but I didn't know whether this is gonna be the next big thing or whatever.
So what made you continue to pursue that in terms of continue to build and build it out?
Well, I think the biggest motivation was always the people around me. So we had the luck that we hired from beginning on really talented people, smart people, and then this keeps you alive, and because we always eat together, and then you have these nice talks. So even if the business is not going well, you have the right spirit in the company that just sometimes you go down, and then you have other people who are driving hard to keep the thing alive, because normally, there are different startups, but normally it makes like it's pretty up and down all the time. You lose one big customer, and then your revenue is like, oh, it's not good, right? So you have to be creative, and but if you have the right people, then I think that's the foundation, and then it's actually fun to work, and then the thing can grow.
Okay. So how important is the culture of the organization? Because from what you're saying, I can hear you saying, the people that work well together and so on. Is it something that you consciously built into the organization, or just something that happened organically? Did you, for example, say, we are going to have Friday is, drinks night, and we go out and have fun, or this is just something that happened?
Well, not just Friday, but no, it's more organic. So that was completely not a top-down approach. It's more about what kind of people you have. And when you hire people, then we try to select the right guys. Maybe not the most talented and the smartest guy ever from a CV, but this social component is really important, so that the performance of the whole team is really good. And then this was coming natural in our company, because there was a lot of spontaneous parties just going on. You never had to plan it really, and not like a top down or giving an incentive that something happens like this.
Interesting. The next question I have is, now obviously looking at the room in front of us, most of the people in here are either entrepreneurs who've just started a business or thinking about it. How important would you say hiring is, and what advice would you give to the people in the room with regards building that team?
Well, I think that's the key question. I think there are many routes to success or failure. But I think the only constant in all the startups that I've seen that are successful are that they hire the right people. And especially when you start, that's really important, because it's most of the people are coming through the network, right? Because we have smart, good people, and then they're bringing their friends in, and then they bring the right culture in. And they know they're also smart, and then this brings the whole thing together. So this hiring thing is really the most important, because if you do this wrong, then I mean, just as one person you can't do a lot. So you're completely depending on your team, and having this great team, I think this is the base of any success.
So, okay, you've started building a team and you've developed this company. What advice would you give to anyone starting a business today in terms of what are the next steps? What are the most important things in terms of growing this from, maybe being a 5-man team that's developing software to growing that beyond the 5-man team?
Yeah, well, that's a very difficult question, because it really depends on what kind of business you run. But I think that times are over where you have very hierarchical structures, and so keeping the spirit that you have people hold people accountable for what they're doing, but not go in and tell them what they have to do. It's more like try to explain what the challenge is, and then they will figure it out. So, and if you have this culture, this scales actually pretty well, So, and you get the results out of it. Otherwise, you're always extremely depending on how your hierarchical structure is, and if something, it goes not well down the pipe, then you lose all the information on all that stuff. And actually also, the really smart people, and you want to have a little bit entrepreneurship kind of people, they will leave if you start, with hard processes and, like top down, and that's what we do, nothing else, in my view. But I'm sure there are a lot of different approaches.
That's true. Now, going back to your journey, you've developed this product. It's coming up quite well. What were the next steps in terms of developing Netbreeze into a global company, especially being based in Switzerland?
Well, we were bought by the CRM department of Dynamics CRM of Microsoft, and the first challenge was, I was last year. There is the big conference of the Microsoft Business Solutions in the States, and then our CVP Bob Stotts said, all the online CRM customers, they will get Netbreeze for free, and we were like, oh, that's a lot, right? And so the next step was really to build out the stuff that we have done at scale. And scale within Microsoft is just a different scale that normally you think of. And so basically we're building now for 1 year. We have the whole team was building this scalable approach, right? And basically we have almost changed everything in the application to make this happen. And also for myself, so there is the Microsoft, now it's called Microsoft Social Listening. It's not Netbreeze anymore, and also I got I was lucky to get another area, which is marketing. So they acquired Marketing Pilot, and now this is called Microsoft Dynamics Marketing, and I'm responsible for the 2 products.
Okay, wow. Now, talking more about the Microsoft acquisition, what was the process like going from being an independent, software vendor to Microsoft approaching you? Did you have any other companies that were interested in Netbreeze at the time, and how did you go through those negotiations to actually then become part of Microsoft?
Yeah, well, that was actually quite a hard process. So we grew, and then at 2008 we took in venture capital. So then it's quite clear that you have an exit at some point, and so we had also we had already one part, the plugin, which was going into Dynamics CRM, And also we see there is a consolidation phase going on the social listening space. You know, all the big players, they're buying the startups from SAP, Salesforce, whatever. And so we knew that if you want to do this a bigger round, then you need to do it now. And even we were not really big. And we had also an M&A agency, you know, that was spotting around. So we did a lot of presentations with a lot of companies, and also, of course, got asked by some companies. But it was really driven mainly by this M&A agency that we say, okay, now it's the right time, right? And then the process with Microsoft was about a year from the first contact. And once it was getting more serious, then it's really it's an unbelievable process, because you know there is on the other side there are almost more people than we were, you know, looking at the case. And basically at some point, you know, there's a point of no return, because you have to invest so much into the due diligence process. You know, this is almost shutting down the company. And so that at some point we said, okay, right, so the basic, you know, figures are right. Okay, we're going and try to sell the company, and then went through the whole due diligence process.
Would you be free to disclose how much Microsoft offered?
No, I think everybody asked this, but it's not public.
That's, well, I had to try. Okay, now you've become part of this huge giant. How does Netbreeze culture interact with Microsoft? How did you keep the Netbreeze, you know, free, open culture going on in a big organization such as Microsoft?
Yeah, well, on one part is we're still here in Switzerland. So the main team, the main development team is still here. So, and that's far away from Redmond. So that helps us to keep our own culture. But honestly, you know, I mean, I've been a lot in the States, you know, and the reputation of Microsoft within Switzerland, or I thought it's not that good, but actually, you know, within Microsoft, there are a lot of passionate people, and it's not so different, right? So I was really, really surprised. So they are passionate about what they're doing, smart guys, and so that made it really easy. And it's truly a tech company, right? It's I mean, here in Switzerland, you have the sales and marketing office, and that's a little bit different kind of people. They have to. But on the Redmond side, there is a lot of development, you know, and a lot of nerds, tech guys hanging around, and they're kind of the same people. So that was not completely... And also they decided, you know, we should actually keep our spirit. They really called it out. We should keep it, because sometimes, you know, it's much easier if you don't know all the hurdles, like when I started the company, of a big corporation. So you're fresh and just go on, right? And then, you know, and this gives you speed. So I think that we could preserve a lot of that. But of course, you know, there is a lot of also processes that you just have to follow, right? And security, legal, and all that stuff, right? Completely new too. Well, not completely, but not at the same level. And this just, you know, makes a big difference how you can come up with new stuff. You know, it takes more time, but of course you have to go through it because you do it on another scale.
That's definitely some food for thought there. Now, going on to obviously the audience we have in front of us, would you suggest to an entrepreneur today starting to build with an exit in mind in terms of selling to a Salesforce, a Microsoft in the future? Or would you say build the company and grow it as far as you can take it?
Well, I've seen actually both approaches. There are guys more focused on doing some stuff and selling it, right? And why not? I've seen it also working. But I'm more. I could never do this, right? So I would not have passion to start to sell the company. That wouldn't work for me. For me, it's not so much about cash. It's actually, my biggest motivation was just to create something that actually then goes on its own. And this is kind of, you start with an idea, and then at the end of the day, you have a lot of people who put a lot of energy into that idea to grow it, even if you're not there anymore. And this is kind of a really nice thing for me personally.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that you had at some point taken venture funding. Now, especially talking from a Swiss perspective, what is your take on angel funding and venture funding in Switzerland in terms of, do you think there's enough out there? Do you think there's certain things that would need to be changed? Or, what is your experience of going through that process?
Well, I think there is certainly enough money out there right now. So there's a lot of money out there. I think the only problem in Switzerland, you cannot come with a plan, and you want to change the world. I think people here in Switzerland, they don't do the big bets, right? So you have to go to another country, to Germany or to the States to do this. But just to grow a business with normal numbers, I think that's perfectly fine here in Switzerland. And you have a lot of I know some guys in investiere.ch, for example. They come up with a new model, which is, it's kind of really nice because there's smart people on the other side, so they actually help you more than just get the money. And I think you have a lot of people out there that actually can do that to start. But then if you do series, B or C rounds, then I think maybe it's getting very difficult in Switzerland. But actually to start, I think it's a perfect place here. But not with, I need 5 million to start my business. Okay. So.
Do you think Switzerland needs more exits such as yourself, or companies listing on the stock exchange to get more interest in startups?
Well, that would be nice, right? Because we have a lot of technologies, around, but sometimes somehow the Swiss guys they have problems to really do good marketing, really market their stuff. So I think that's really a problem, right? Within Switzerland, the culture. I mean, if I see how Microsoft is selling our stuff that we're building, then I say, wow, okay, we're doing really good stuff. So, yeah, exactly. And sometimes I miss this in Switzerland. So I think we could have much more really successful startups if we would have this culture that you really stand up and say, hey, I have really great product out there.
Now, coming back to more personal questions. Now, going through this process of selling to Microsoft, and obviously you had a company that had employees, people who are depending on you as the person steering the ship, so to speak. Did you have any situations where you thought, where you're questioning yourself whether you're doing the right thing or not, or this was something that you were quite clear in terms of once you'd made the decision, this was the direction you were going?
Well, I'm always questioning what I'm doing, so that's not. But there was not a big question whether I want to keep on doing the Netbreeze stuff, right? Because there were so many opportunities. Actually, we had too many opportunities, so it was more a problem on getting focus on the right stuff. So that's why it's more these kind of questions And well, questioning is always one part is of course also the family life, which is not really which is kind of difficult, you know, if you have a startup kind of business and family, and that's, and you know, at some point, you know, like now at Microsoft, you know, I could not go and do a new company, you know, right now, because I think my wife would not allow it. So, right. So, yeah.
Now, obviously, sticking with this personal questions. Now, obviously, there's nobody who knows everything. And I'm sure as you're going through the process of building a company, was there anybody who you went to ask questions with regards, okay, how do I do this? You know, such and such employee is giving me trouble. What do I do? Did you have people to lean on in terms of ask those type of questions? And how important do you think that is as a founder building a company?
Yeah, well, I didn't have like a big mentor or something. And also, well, when I was a little bit younger, maybe I was a little bit resistant to advice, right? I want to do it on my own. Now I think I'm getting better with this. But, you know, most of the advices were coming from the network, so my friends, and then we had always new people coming in, like somebody's actually sitting here. Robert, can you please raise your hand? Actually, you know, he was working for Netbreeze, and you know, and then you have always completely new views coming in, and this is helping you a lot to shape the vision, or maybe take another road, or focus on the right stuff.
Okay, that's very interesting. So without having this kind of one person, you'd say the network of friends that you had is what helped you through the tough times. Now, for people in this room, in terms of the entrepreneurs, how would you suggest they build that type of network that they can rely on in terms of for these tough questions as a founder?
Well, it was not so much, you know, the tough questions. You know, to get along with really bad times, it was more my family, and having kids is like, you know, they don't know anything about business, and that's good. So you get absorbed with completely different world, and then you know all the business questions, you know, they're like, oh, it's not so important. So that helped a lot, and the tough questions within the business. I think if you move on fast, the customers will tell you pretty fast too whether you're doing the right thing. So, well, that's a big advantage of a startup, because you know you can try out a lot of stuff, and so that's why you see pretty quickly what failures are and what is success. So a lot of advice was also coming from the customer itself.
Okay. That's, well, and how did you get to the point where you're building like this customer base and building these relationships? Is it in terms of within Netbreeze, is it a case of, you know, you got your first pilot customer who you offered this for free and built a relationship, offered the product, or, you know, you had this big sales team that you developed that went out and demoed and so on?
Yeah. No, it was, you know, our story is like, you know, until we sold, this is a 14-year-old company. So we started off with this platform and did projects on top of it. So it was more a project-based company. And we did this until 2008. And actually, this was one of the tough questions, because then we said, okay, we're going to switch to a product company. And building this out was extremely tough, because we decided not like to keep that business and do a new company, which is a product company. We tried to come from a project slowly to a product company. And this was extremely difficult, because, if you do this transition, people have to work on the product and on the projects. And so this transition, I think, was the biggest challenge and also quite a painful. And so on the project side, it's quite easy, right, to sell stuff, right? But then if you switch to the product side, then this ramp-up phase, takes normally quite long until you do some good revenues. But on the other side, because the same people are doing the projects, your revenue goes down on the project line, and then you have to, but it has to be compensated by selling the products. And so, but still, when we got acquired, we were still in the phase, right, to ramping up the product business. So, and I think that was not really the right decision how we did it, but because we could have been much faster making a clear cut, but then you need much more money to do it. But from a customer, how you build it out, we really started small, and then had one large customer like Swiss Re or UBS, and then we actually sold more and more within the large enterprises, within the network that we had, which is, again, on the product side, a completely different game, right? Because there, you have to do much more cold calls and all that stuff. So it's a completely different company. Everything is different, and so and different approaches. And I think, if I look in the past, I wouldn't do it the way we have done it. I really would say, okay, why not keep in this business and let it run and build up a new company, which is completely focused on the product side.
That's interesting. Now, with regards a new startup person coming to you and saying, okay, I need advice, would you suggest they go down the services route in terms of building customer, growing with them, or product route in terms of building a product and getting it out into the market? What would you say is the best approach?
Well, I mean, both can be really interesting. It depends on your goal that you have. I mean, if you want to if you really want to scale, then you have to go down the product route anyway, but then you need a lot of investment normally to actually ramp this all up. If you start with this more service-oriented, project-based, then you have much more time to grow. You don't burn that much money. Maybe you're profitable from the first year, and then you have also time, to build up value, maybe until you see a point where you really want to go international, and then you need money. So there is a lot of advantages to go small first, because if you go big, I would say there is a high risk that you're gonna fail anyway if you're doing it for the first time, and also it's difficult within Switzerland to really go the product approach from the first time.
Okay. And obviously this is from more of your opinion. Would you say, because of we've had entrepreneurs on stage who've spoken about thinking about global from day one, would you say, obviously, if you went the product route, you would have to have that kind of mindset and obviously look for the type of money where you can be global from day one?
Well, it always depends on the business. There can be a really profitable, completely local business, right? Okay. There is. But I think for most people, it's much easier if you have a big vision going global and then you start local to build it up. Because otherwise, the other way around, it's very difficult. If you think local and you want to do a global business, it never will happen. So you have to, from day one, you have this attitude to really turn a big wheel, and then it makes a lot more easier to say, okay, here is my vision, and just execute always against this vision. So I'm really more the guy of thinking big, you know, and then doing small steps to accomplish this.
All right. Okay, cool. Now coming back to you personally, I have a question with regards, if you had an opportunity to turn back time, what advice would you give young Francois in terms of when you initially started Netbreeze? What have you learned that you'd tell him?
Well, that's a tough question, because I told you before that I was a little bit resistant for advice. So even if I would give the advice to the young Francois, he wouldn't take it. But but maybe I would tell him, maybe get more advice.
That's interesting. Next question is with regards failure. Obviously, in every business, you will go through failures, big or small. How do you deal and cope with that in terms of from a day-to-day perspective, and also obviously the big failures? How have you coped going through your business?
Yeah, I mean, most of the failures we're trying to learn from it. I think, like everybody else, some failures you try to ignore, so because you don't want to learn from it, and yeah, because maybe it's a personal thing, right? And you cannot change your personality so much, so maybe you just try to avoid these kind of situations, but failure, I mean, as a startup is that's the nice thing, right? That you can do so many failures as long as your business is not that big. If your business is bigger and then you do a failure, this can be a complete disaster. But having a lot of speed, have a lot of flexibility, gives you actually the luxury to do some failures.
Well, sorry. With regards that, I mean, talking to the entrepreneurs here, would you say that they should have, some people say, you should have a mindset that if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. Would you say that is your ethos?
Well, absolutely, because, I mean, if you do a lot of things, you're gonna fail, or you're a complete genius. I don't know. I have never seen somebody who's trying hard and not failing, because that's just normal in the business. So I'm really a big fan of going fast and fail fast. So, and then you can actually learn from it and do it better. Because normally, I've seen a lot of startups. They have huge business plans, for example, and I would never invest so much time into a business plan, because you don't know whether it works or not. So it's better just to start off, right, and then do some failures, learn from it, and then actually, maybe you get an idea how a business plan could look like. But doing first the business plan, very detailed and all that stuff, it never happens anyway, right? The way you thought it's going to happen, or I've never seen it until now. So it's much better to actually, do something, confront the potential customers, friends, whatever, with your idea, constantly bring out the product as fast as you can. Well, that's easy on the internet space, right? Because you don't need huge investments, no production or something like this. And then learn from the data, right? So if you have the chance to put your product in the market, even if it's a prototype, and collect data, how customers are using it, and then thinking about, okay, this could be maybe a real case to do business. And then build a business plan around it, because I would never invest in a company with just a business plan. And even when smart people, if they not had shown me some data or activities, they had to push out the stuff in the market.
Okay, that's some sound advice. Now coming back to a more of a personal question. Have you, with all of this that's happened, had a what would be called an "I've made it" moment, in terms of you felt that, okay, now I've achieved what I wanted to achieve?
Well, I think that I had this when I sold the company until the next day when I saw all the emails, right? So it was a very short moment in time, but that was good. It was a good feeling, right, to have this. And but I have always a list of 11 ideas. And this is if something now I have one cross, which is the whole social listening stuff, and but so it fills up again. So I'm never done with what I'm trying to do with a new company or within Microsoft. So I don't care.
Okay. So you'd say that you always have something that you're striving for in terms of looking for the next challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's somehow in my DNA that I'm just always thinking about new ideas. Always, that's my passion. Because and then maybe I stumble upon something that I think, hey, this could actually work, and then I do some kind of mini business plan, right, with a value proposition, and then I just go out and talk about it and see what the reactions are. And then get a sense of, okay, what could work, what not, and is this an idea? Does somebody understand my idea or not? And then reshaping that all the time, and then have this, I have a folder with all these ideas, and so that's driving me forward. It's just innovation is kind of the stuff that I like.
Very interesting. So we could see another, well, obviously not Netbreeze, but another company from you in the future, potentially.
Yes, I hope so. But it's also depending on how well it goes now within Microsoft. So it's my first year within a really big company. I got a lot of responsibilities. Now I have also to prove that within a big company I can perform. So I think up to now I'm doing a pretty good job, but you never know. So it's a different game, but it gives me a lot of experiences. Also, what the real challenges are within big companies. Because a lot of times, I wondered, we were going to big companies and telling you, hey, look, this is a really great idea. You can save costs, you can make more money, and all that stuff. And it was kind of, why? They don't buy, but why, right? And actually now I understand it much better just after 1 year, because it's all about what kind of priorities they have, and if completely match these priorities, even if the company could save money and what else, they have a different strategy and they're gonna kill your idea immediately. They all think, well, it's great, give you a lot of credits, but they're not going to do the project or buy the product. And I understand it now why this is like this, right? So I think for a startup, for maybe a next one, I would really try to align this with having is the market really ready for what I want to do, or is this a play where I actually have to generate demand for it? And then it's kind of a completely different game, right? But then you know it, right? Then you know what you're trying to do, because trying to actually generate the market for your product, it's like a almost impossible thing, right? But if this is kind of really a good distinction, because I see a lot of business plans that actually have this demand generation in it, that they still need to develop a new market. And I think they don't know what they're trying to do, because it takes just normally years to build that, and then your ramp up of the revenue figures are completely not realistic. Wherever you have a problem where you say, hey, I know this problem exists, I'm just doing it better, or with less costs, and it is a strategic problem that's on the agenda of the companies, I think then you have a good chance that you're going to succeed.
Okay. Now another question with regards to the entrepreneurs in front of us. are there any things that, in terms of mistakes or things that you've done in the past that you'd want to advise entrepreneurs to avoid?
So I think sometimes, to be really honest to yourself, sometimes I just didn't want to see reality because, having the dream, and then it's very tough because you have to be so passionate about what you're doing to keep up the energy, to go over and over all the hurdles, calling 100 customers to get one, and get always no, and then this needs a lot of energy. But then I tended to like cheat myself, in believing in my own. In my own dreams, that's okay. But also I thought, reality looks like a little bit, this way, how I want to see it. And having this two, it's like, it's very difficult to have both sides, that you say, here is the passion, dream, and everything. And on the other say, stay grounded and just look at the raw data, right? That you say, what are really customers trying to tell me, and not what you would like to hear, and do this interpretation. So this is truly what I've learned. I think that to have this clear distinction, to have this one better, and also another maybe failure was, when we did this transition from the project to the product company. I think that was, the way we did it was not the right way. So completely underestimated what that means, and having there, taking in advice, would be actually a very helpful thing.
Now, coming on to some personal questions again. Obviously, you have a family. How do you balance family and being an entrepreneur, which is almost a 24/7 thing?
Yeah, I mean, there is no balance. That's a problem. But also my job is also my hobby. So that's why, my wife is used to that, reading a book and working and all that stuff is all the same, pretty much. But with the kids, it's also, it's quite easy because, they bring you into really a new world. And so that's just, so you want to spend a lot of time with your family. Otherwise, you can try to manage, a relationship, which is not a good thing, in my opinion. But having this, this base, this home base, I think it's, that's constantly always also pulling me into the family, but still, to be honest, it is a challenge, there is.
Okay. Last question on the personal side, and then we go into a couple of quick fire questions. What do you do on your downtime, or what do you do in terms of when you don't have work and you're with family?
Well, I just mainly play with my kids. I used to a lot of biking, hiking, climbing, mountaineering, but right now that's kind of over. But I have now a 1-hour drive from Veraldorf to Zurich to go working, so hopefully I'm getting into a little bit a better shape in the future. But no, most of the time when I have time off, I spend it with my family, and trying to do some. We have a little house. Well, it's not a house; it's more a hut in Wallis, and this is really perfect because the internet connection is really bad. And so if I'm there, you have to do something else. You cannot check your phone and all that stuff. So, and it's a completely different world. And so this brings me a lot.
That's good. That's good to hear that at least you have that time out. Now coming on to a couple of rapid fire questions before we open up to the floor. This is just quick question, quick answer. What item do you own that you'd never sell?
Nothing.
Okay.
Well, no. I made the joke, my kids, but no.
Okay. What unusual skill do you have?
Unusual skill. I discovered I can also play the corporate game, and everybody said I'm gonna fail with this, but I think I can also do it.
What historic figure do you admire most?
I don't have really a historical figure. Maybe, Reinhold Messner. I've read all his books. He has done some incredible thing, real adventure, as a climber, mountaineer.
What's more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
Stamina.
Okay, yeah, that's a from a climber. That's good. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
You're a great guy.
Okay. Who in your professional life do you think does a good job, a great job?
Who in my professional life?
Do you think does a great job?
Oh, really? Well, mainly I admire, this young entrepreneurs, because there I see the real energy. They want to do it. They want to do some stuff. So I've seen a lot of startups, and so these kind of people I like most.
Okay. What's your favorite season?
Winter.
Why?
Because you can go skiing, and actually but it's not all. It's not just skiing. I just if it's cold, you have fresh air, and so I just like the spirit.
Okay, cool. When was the last time you tried something new?
Well, really new, that's quite a long time ago. But in my mind, all the time.
Okay. Okay, last quick-fire question. What attribute from an animal would you choose and why?
Well, a very difficult question. Maybe nice pit bull, which is, we can be nice, but maybe sometimes aggressive, moving fast. Maybe it would have a little bit of a bigger brain. I hope so.
Okay, that's cool. Now opening up to the floor. Any questions?
Hi. I would be interested in what were the reasons for Microsoft to take an interest in your company, and in the process of the due diligence, what was the things where you had the feeling that they looked most after?
Yeah. Actually, there were 250 competitors out there. I think the main reason why they bought us is, on the one hand, people. So we had a really highly educated team, and so people and IP, they're not buying revenue, right? Because normally they can scale after that, and so they knew they have the money to invest a lot into the product afterwards. So they're working for, I think, some smart guys that have proven that they have a good product. We had big customers, and also we had, I think, a different approach that most of our competitors regarding social. Mainly, all they were focused on the product, social analytics, social listening or engagement. And we had, I think, a broader vision how we want to apply that social intelligence to across the organization. And I think that also, you know, having this different approach and this vision matched very well with a shop like Microsoft, where they have like endless opportunities to implement that. And on the due diligence side, where they looked a lot, is obviously, you know, really important is that your books are okay. You know, if you have, you know, like, they look at, you know, the most important people, and then if something is wrong there, then you can imagine then downstream it will get worse. So this has to be completely honest, you know, don't hide anything. Just tell how it is, even if there is some problems, but there is always some problems. You know, you have to address it, you know, directly and go through it. Because, you know, if they will find it out and then it's coming back to you, then it's really bad. So the books, you know, all that stuff had to be completely okay. And then, of course, a big chunk was the code itself. So they did a lot of review on, you know, we used a lot of open source products. So can we use the licenses? Is that all okay? All that. And then they went also through all the contracts. Is there anything within the contracts, right, if they take it over, that could generate a problem? So also, you know, because we, you know, have had the product side was okay because we had standard contracts almost, but coming from the product from the project side, we had all these different contracts, right, completely customized, tailor-made for the big companies, because the big companies dictated us how the contract looks like. And now, you know, and then they look at these contracts and say, it's impossible, right? You have to manage off this and this and this and this customer. And so that was a big challenge too. And then, of course, you know, they did interviews with all the people. And then it's quite obvious whether your people know what you're doing or not. So really, this was, first of all, books need to be okay completely. And then, you know, they for example, they want to know how much, you know, kind of expenses you have, because this is a good sign whether something is wrong or not. And code, people, and then, of course, the whole legal stuff. Legal was big, right, for Microsoft.
I basically have two questions, but they're related. What was the evolution of your sales process when you from when you started up to when you became grown? And the second related one, you mentioned that for the product company and for the project company, there are different approaches. And basically, what's the difference there?
All right. So the sales process is really completely different from a project into a product approach. So on the project side, it was mainly going through networking. So we try to network as best as we can to get to the right people, you know, that we know inside a company, that then can guide us, you know, like a guided introduction to the actual person where we want to sell. So, and this worked out pretty well. We just followed this approach. On the product side, first we failed completely because we tried to do cold calls and all that stuff, but you know that didn't really work out well. So what we have done is actually come up with a freemium model, just to get more pressure into the market, so that everybody sees us. And then having this out in the market helped us a lot to get much more attention and, you know, generate the leads from it, because we didn't want it to have a huge sales team. You know, that's extremely expensive, to have a big sales team, and you don't even know, how good they will do, then you burn a lot of money, and we didn't have that much money. So we took the approach that we tried to be very present in the social space, but not through making buzz, through actually our own product, right? Because it's a freemium model, and then it was integrated into big newspapers like in Switzerland or in Germany. And this generated a lot of buzz, but the product itself, and then, the leads were coming in. But still we had a small sales team that just, followed up and also did, went to trade fairs and, presented our stuff and things like this.
What advice would you give to someone that's got a technology idea but don't have the skills to actually start?
Oh, that's actually a very, a very good question, because I think there are a lot of people actually have exactly this problem, and I would try to find a person, a partner, to build it, which comes with this knowledge. Because, I think you cannot start, paying somebody doing this. Because first it will cost you too much, or if you have, I don't know how much money with the venture capital, then maybe you can do it. But still, you don't have the right spirit, so So I would really have a partner first that can build the first thing, and then, hire more people. But I think it's the much better approach than, because it's very difficult whether this guy is then doing the right thing. And also, to find a partner, I would always double, triple check it with other people that have the skills, whether this guy really has the skill to make the first steps.
You mentioned that you're always looking for problems within companies. Are you doing this systematically? Are you sitting there and you think about some businesses and you think, what could be a painkiller and how could I solve it? Or what would?
All right. No, actually, I'm coming from the other side. So I'm more about. All right, I have this thing, what could you do with it? And then applied and then mostly you don't solve anything, right, with it. It would just be nice, or I would like it, but I guess you don't really solve a problem. So I'm coming more from this side. But then, now I just learned, in all these years, to really double check it and then see what is the value proposition of this idea and actually what exactly is it solving, and then putting a lot of energy then into this exactly, to answer very clear what's the problem I'm going to solve. But the starting point is mostly not coming from the problem side, that I see, this should be done better. It's more, I go along ideas, and then I come across a new algorithm in the artificial space, and I read about it and say, all right, this is quite interesting. And then what could you do with it? And then it starts from there. But it's very personal, so it's actually the much better approach if you go, here is the problem, do I have an idea? But I work the other way around.
Just going back to where you started, you mentioned lots of difficulties. What were the biggest challenges to get the first contracts to sell your product?
To sell something?
Yeah, first two contracts.
Well, the very first contact was very easy.
Contract.
A contract, yeah, that was that was actually quite funny. Well, the first contract was doing a website, and it was just to make money, right? And isn't actually there was my uncle who just gave me that project from a different company, and then we did the offer, and then we almost didn't get it, and we found out that we were much too cheap, right? With the price, they say, well, that's not serious, right? It has to be much more expensive. So, well, that was the first one, and the second contract was very funny because we just outlined what kind of projects we can do, with our skills, and then we were just writing emails, going through. Actually, I had problem with my hand because I was copy pasting all the addresses to do this, and then we had a bigger manufacturing company, and they just it was the time when there was almost no Java programmers out there, and then we just started one project with them, but that was really very early when we started, almost just graduated from high school, from university, and so that was not the contracts maybe you think of, right? Because we have done this work to build up our stuff. So the first contracts based on our own product or platform was really that we built it up. We actually had no clue actually for what kind of business you can use it. It was just that's a cool idea, and then we went through the different verticals and looked at it where we could apply this, talked to a lot of people, and then we found that in the job market they have actually the problem, how do you get out the job profiles of all the companies, and we could solve this problem for them. So we talked to them and got the first contract. Is this answering your question?
Yeah.
Not really.
Basically, I was interested more in the process, like how much you try to get it. Like
to sell
at
the
the
first
beginning.
Netbreeze product. So your actual product.
Yeah. Well, you mean on the product side or on the project side? Because on the project side, it was mainly through contacts. Then we went in and then we outlined kind of the stuff that we can do with our platform, and then we let the customer talk what are their biggest challenges that they have out there, and then within the meeting we tried to identify on which problem, which is a strategic problem, we could add a certain value, right? Like reducing costs or doing a better risk calculation or whatever. And then mainly because these are big companies, we said, okay, we're going to start with a pilot project, like a proof of concept. Because they have the budget right away to do a smaller project. And so we have the foot in the door, and then during this pilot project, we could actually, upsell the whole project and get them familiar with all the stuff, get the buy-in, and then sometimes they needed a year to actually, get the project funded. And also then we had an idea, are there different budgets around where we can hook on it, because normally the stuff that we have done was not they waited for it all the time, right? It's not like there are 5 products and then we have to buy one of them. It was more like demand generation that we have to do. Maybe we can solve you this problem here, but it was always quite different. This on the project side, on the product side, it was completely different. When we entered the product side, the whole race on social analytics was already had already started, so we were quite late in the game. And then it's kind of simple, you gather the RFPs that are out there, and then you see, okay, where you can land your message, and can you position, even if you don't have all the functionality, can you somehow position your product that is solving some question which is really important for that vertical, and then start with this one so you can have some advantage over it. And also, I think there is, even if you don't have the best product, if you do a really good service on top of it, also big companies gonna choose you, because if you have a really good product but not a good service for it, then you fail too, because normally you have to educate the people how to use the product, how to implement the use case, and all that stuff for it. So we try to bring in a lot of service into the selling when we started, and the more we know, the more functionality we had in, the more we could keep up with competition and have some USPs. We could switch to this awareness side with a freemium model. Is this answering now the question? Yeah. Maybe. All right.
Yeah, hi. Has there been any noticeable change in behavior or corporate culture since Barmer stepped down?
Yes, I think so. So I think everybody is very happy with Satya. But mainly, I think it's not about I'm just a year in the company, right? So, but I think it's not so much about Balmer. It's more about that everybody knows that a new area is coming from Microsoft. So you can really see how the company is turning around into this new cloud mobile first strategy. And I think, then at some point you just need a change, regardless of who it is in the first place. But if you have this change, and it's somebody from the tech side, so I think, most of people I talk to are very happy with it, and you see that this, cloud mobile first is actually what a lot of people agree, and I think he could really transport this message very well to at least to the developers. I'm on the developer side.
Do we have one last question? Yeah.
I have a more technical question. So I'm interested in how did you manage basically the evolution of the technology in these 14 years? A lot of stuff happened, a lot of new projects, open source stacks emerged. How did you keep up with that pace? I mean, what were the decisions when to switch, and how to choose which direction to go?
Yeah, that was actually a lot of very tough questions out there, because technology completely changed, over the years. But what never did change is we started off as a SaaS company, from day one. So that was all the same. So one thing was not so tough, which is just we had always the browser interface. So for the client, they don't even see it, right? So we could do whatever you want on the back end, but still, we went into a lot of traps where we see, hey, this is a really nice technology, open source, but after half a year, all the developers were gone, and we had the thing in the product. So over the years, we tend to have only bigger, very well supported open source stuff, because only then you the lifetime, you have a certain lifetime, and that some problems get fixed, and you have a community, because we had to change a lot then into these products, and that you have a community you actually rely on, you know, to solve the bugs that are always there. And but also we did a lot of failure because with that, okay, the market is going this direction technology-wise, and then we found out no, it's the other way around. So we, for example, we started off with an XML database, which was really cool, but it didn't scale, right? Performance was really bad at some point. We just had to get rid of it. And then also, you know, all this Hadoop stuff now is coming up. And so we had really constantly changed the back end to keep up with the challenges. But also we didn't have a huge installation base, right, on-prem out there. So that's then a little bit easier to do it in the back end. Okay.
Excellent. Well, we're coming to the end of our time here. It's been very interesting and inspiring. I think everyone has been able to gather some very positive takeaways. So thank you very much for taking your time to share your lessons with us, and appreciate your time and appreciate all of you for coming and the input and questions as well, because that's what makes it interesting, is both hearing from the attendees and you know, the questions that we prepared. So thank you very much, Francois.
Yeah, and also want to tell you, so if you want to talk or whatever, if you have ideas, I'm always open, right? We are at Wollishofen, just pass by and say hello, and we go have lunch together. I'm always love to hear new ideas.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right.
So
okay. Thank you.